Jackson case, NBC News has learned that the boy who says Michael Jackson molested him knew details of the 1993 case, where a young boy made similar allegations, and in that case, there was a payoff. NBC's Mike Taibbi has the exclusive details.
As the case moves forward against Michael Jackson for allegedly molesting the 12-year-old cancer patient shown in this British documentary, NBC News has learned of major potential problems facing prosecutors. Problems revealed in secret documents examined exclusively by NBC News from the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department investigation of the case. Item: did this investigation proceed by the normal routes? The same players carrying this case forward, Santa Barbara District Attorney Tom Snedden, Los Angeles Attorney Larry Feldman, and Beverly Hills psychologist Dr. Stan Katz, were the major players in the similar case from 1993, when another teenage boy accused Jackson of molesting him. Jackson denied it, but settled the case out of court, reportedly for millions, and because the boy refused to testify, Snedden could not go forward with a criminal prosecution. Jackson's defenders say the names common to both cases suggest an agenda, even a vendetta. But the chance that a jury might see it that way isn't the only hurdle facing prosecutors. Item: how much did the current accuser know about the earlier case against Jackson and the huge financial settlement he paid out? In a report on June 13th last year, Dr. Katz is quoted as saying to a Santa Barbara investigator that he told the accuser, "You know, you don't want Jackson to do these things to kids again, do you?" He says the boy answered, well, he didn't stop him, giving the rarely reported full name of the first accuser. Katz answered, "I actually do know about that case. I worked on that one, too." Item: is money a motive? Those connected with the accuser's family have said it's not, that no one's talking about a civil lawsuit.
No civil
Not
case.
Snedden.
There is no anticipation that there will be a civil case filed in this particular case.
And not family attorney Feldman, who won that big settlement back in the 93 case.
I don't know where they get this idea that this is about money. It just simply isn't true.
But in the records from last June, Katz is quoted by the Santa Barbara investigator as saying of the accuser and his two siblings, "Mr. Feldman actually referred these kids to me because they'd come to him in this lawsuit Feldman's going to file." Whether the mother's motive is to do it for money, I can't tell you. I mean, certainly they're kind of a poor family. And Katz is also quoted as telling the accuser, "Look, if you go ahead with this civil lawsuit, your family will get money if they win." Nowhere in the records we examined do the family members bring up the topic of money or a civil lawsuit. It's only Dr. Katz who broaches the subject. But so what if the subject was discussed? So what if some of the key names are common to the present case and the 1993 case?
It's a trite line, when they say it's not about the money, it always is.
Attorney Dana Cole is a family law expert. He says talk of a civil lawsuit is understandable and logical in cases of sex abuse against a child.
There's nothing wrong with it if he, in fact, did suffer injuries as a result of true abuse.
But Cole said a jury would surely wonder about the talk of money, about the contradictory stories told by the accuser and his family, about the accuser's familiarity with the 93 case, and about the roles of the same key players in both cases.
At this point in time, I'd probably prefer to defend Michael Jackson than prosecute him.
Do you think the prosecution's in that much trouble?
I do.
To be sure, Santa Barbara's investigators knew what we now know, were able to get a search warrant for Neverland last November, and have now spent more than a year collecting evidence and witnesses in the current molestation case against Michael Jackson. A gag order prevents the principals from commenting for this story, but attorney and longtime Jackson critic Gloria Allred did. Are you worried about this family or this accuser in terms of whether they're telling the truth?
I don't think that Mr. Snedden would have filed the case if he didn't think that he had evidence to support a prosecution.
Prosecution sources have told NBC News the same thing. And sometime in the next few weeks, some of that evidence and some of the witnesses against Jackson will be presented before a secret criminal grand jury. Mike Taibbi, NBC News, Los Angeles.
Jackson's accuser was 12 years old when the alleged molestation occurred, so that means in 1993 he probably wasn't even 2. So how would he know the particulars of the 93 case, since this seems to be more bad news for prosecutors who want to get the law enforcement perspective here? I'm joined now by Jim Thomas, the former Santa Barbara County Sheriff and MSNBC analyst. Jim was part of the investigative team in the 1993 case.
Hey,
all right, Sheriff, good to see you. Good to hear from you. Actually, I'm not seeing you. I'm listening to you. What do you make of this?
Oh, I don't know. I really applaud Mike Taibbi's resourcefulness, and I know him, and he's doing a good job. But thus far, I suspect that, pretty much only a fraction of the documents have been leaked, and there seems to be a common pattern of trouble for the prosecution. I suspect that there are documents which would be classified as trouble for the defense, and I suppose in time we'll see.
But, this specific point, that the boy knew about the 93 case, at least knew the boy's name from the 93 case in full, and the fact that there was this psychologist talking about money to the boy, this all just smacks of what the defense has been saying for months.
Well, it certainly leads that way, and it is going to be a hurdle for the prosecution to jump. There's absolutely no question about that he's going to have to address it. But you have to remember, Dan, that these documents were viewed by the judge who signed the arrest warrant. And I'm certain that thus far there really are no surprises either for the prosecution or the defense.
The judge who reviewed the original search warrant got to see all of the documents connected with the case?
I would imagine he would have seen these, or these were the initial reports from Dr. Katz as well as the initial interviews with the boy, and I would believe that those would have been viewed prior to an arrest warrant being issued.
Okay. Is the prosecution in trouble?
Do I think the prosecution's in trouble?
Yeah, I mean, based on,
No.
Look, I know that, you are close to Tom Sneddon, and yet I also know that, he's not telling you everything about what's going on, et cetera. So I understand that, you're kind of basing this as an observer to a certain degree, but you also know the 93 case very well. Based on what you've been hearing, based on what Mike Taibbi has been reporting this week and last week, all of which is problematic for the prosecutors, do you think that this is a prosecution in trouble?
No, and that's my whole point, is that what we've been reading or what we've been hearing from the reports that have gotten to Mike have all been, quote, prosecution or trouble for the prosecution. I believe there are probably quite a few documents out there that would point in the other direction. Prior to the gag order, the DA and I were a little more free to discuss it. He feels very comfortable about this case. There's nothing in these reports that he doesn't already know. And he would not have filed this case if he did not, number one, believe that Michael Jackson were guilty, and number two, that he could convict him in court.